Yes, welcome back to the Magic Sponge Podcast, a miracle cure for all your rugby league injury issues. I'm Brian. I'm the guy behind all the NRL Physio content you see on socials. My co-host, James, you are here. It is good to have you on a Sunday night. Mate, look, it was a big week for the Finns. They needed to get me out of a hole because I had the high of the Finns on Thursday night and then the deep, deep lows of not owning Dylan Edwards on Friday night. So it's been a bit of a roller coaster for me, but 2 points for the Finns, 2 points for the Bronx. We've got to take that after the weekend, I think.
Yeah, it was a ripper. So up the Finns, mate. Geez, they're just putting on some great football. And Connolly Lemuelu, every time I see him play and start, I think, how is he not a regular first grader? Especially when I look at what the Broncos trot out on the edge every week, I sort of think, oh, wouldn't mind him just come and have a look at the Bronx just quietly. But yeah, they were really impressive. The Dolphins. I guess what did we see this week? We saw some awesome finishes, Brian. How good were the games like the Bulldogs finish, the Tigers finish, Adam Dewey, injury by the year, by the way, that you called earlier in the year, just slotting home a field goal. The Leka Halasima try for the Warriors with Vossi on the call. Like this was just rugby league at its very, very best. You know, we also had some post tries. We had Jamie Chapman doing the flips. We had also the Coldplay concert memes for the Titans girls as well. Just some very, very, very well done post try celebration by the girls. They lead the way, Brian. Like, let's pump up the girls here about how good they are at post tries. Geez, they've got all over the boys. They do a great job, the girls. I'm here for it.
Yeah, mate, I think you and I were talking. We've got to do like I think Golden Sponge Awards, like the best selly of the year. I think has to be on there. For me, it's the milking the cow one first and daylight, but we'll see because we've got quite a few. Oh no, we don't have quite a few. We only got one weekend left, so we'll have to see. Maybe the girls will keep it going. They're all pretty fun with it, so we'll see. But mate, the highlight of my weekend, and this is just me like dipping back into the glory days of my rugby league. You know, back when you didn't have things to do on the weekend except footy. Like your whole weekend revolved around footy. And if you're in like your early 20s or something listening to this show, maybe you're in this spot. But to have Vossi and SJ in the same commentary box, I think it was it Friday night, Saturday night, mate, just the best. Like that was so good. So good. Like my 20s, and I know your 20s as well. Like how many Arvos, Saturday Arvos did we spend listening to Vossi call SJ for the Wars? And now they're both, and mate, no surprise to anyone, SJ is an absolute jet in the com box. So I just want more of it. Keep him in there.
Yeah, I mean, freakishly hot, freakishly talented, freakishly good on comms. What can't SJ do? He's just god tier, mate, at everything he does. I mean, it sucks because he's just good at everything. He's one of those people you hate because he's just good at all, doesn't he? Old
100
SJ.
100%, mate. So I will say, like, we obviously both don't have Dylan Edwards. If you do have Dylan Edwards and you're listening to this and you're not in the Run Home Challenge for the Baller Boys competition, you are crazy. So get on, baller.live, sign up because you could win. I think it's a share in like $7,000 over the next 8 games. You've had the perfect start. So, yeah, make sure you get on. We'll talk about more in SuperCoach Corner, but, yeah, make sure you get along there because if you have Dylan Edwards, you probably are a chance, whereas me and James, we're already catching up with our 2 trades left. So we'll see how we go. As always, guys, we are on YouTube. Everywhere you get your podcast, we're your one-stop shop for all things injuries in the NRL. We loop everything back to fantasy and SuperCoach. Without further ado, let's get into the injury wrap for this week, which is brought to you by PainPod, drug-free pain relief anyone can use.
I don't know exactly what he's done. I would have thought it was an ankle, but I'm just guessing.
He shouldn't be out for a long period of time. I mean, I'm no doctor. We have to wait for the scans, obviously, but that'd be more positive than negative.
Round 20 is in the books, Brian. So HIAs to start with. Out of the Sharks and the Roosters game, it was Briton, Nikora, Billy Smith. Then we've also got Jake Simpkin on the list here from the Manly Seagulls as well. I guess Nikora and Billy Smith were Cat 2s, I think, weren't they, Brian? So they might be ones under, consideration for review.
Mate, we've got the triple threat here because we've got 3 HIAs and all 3 of them are applying for dispensation candidates because we have Briton, Nikora, and Billy Smith, who are both, as you say, category 2, which means They weren't immediately ruled out via symptoms on the field, but then they failed some testing in the sheds afterwards. Now, if they fulfill a whole bunch of criteria like no complex issues with concussion in the past, I think Billy Smith might have a bit of trouble with that, because I feel like he's had, and I might be jumbling Billy Smith's injuries all into one, that he's had a tough time with so many injuries. But I feel like Billy Smith had a concussion at training, maybe, that he had a bit of an extended recovery from. And if you have like an extended recovery from a concussion in your past, you can't challenge, like that automatically rules you out. But there's a whole bunch of other criteria as well. You need to have less than, I think it's 5 concussions in your career. You can't have a concussion in the last 3 months. So I think, there's some considerations there for those guys. But Jake Simpkin, the opposite, in that he was ruled to have category 1 signs by the independent doctor. They said, yep, that is a clear and obvious concussion. And Manly have come out and said, no, he wasn't concussed. He was fine. So I don't think we've seen any of these turned down if they are challenged that we know about. And this is, once again, it comes back to, we just don't have much messaging around this kind of stuff. So, yeah, I mean, dog's breakfast as per usual, mate. What's different about the HIA portion of our podcast week in and week out? So more of the same.
No, nothing different. The only one I can remember that I think the Bulldogs applied for Dan Sluka Fafita, and I think that got turned down from memory. I think there was only one, but again, like you said, the strike rate is like pretty strongly in favour of, like, if you apply for it, it'll get overturned. But I think there was it Sluka Fafita or someone else from the Dogs, I think. And that was, I remember you saying like, oh, I haven't seen that before. That was a bit how you going. So, as it is, Dogs breakfast as per usual. Dolphins v Cowboys was on the slate first, Brian. So Murray Taulagi has been reported as a hamstring concern. That's going to be a multi-week absence for him. And Tom Mikaele from the Cows as well, with a medial knee injury, I believe, as well.
Yeah, mine are for Mikaele, apparently. So that's usually like 1 to 3 weeks. Taulagi, obviously, like high speed mechanism going for that or scoring that try. So I'm expecting at least like 4 to 6 weeks for him, considering, how, like, I guess how much the force behind it when he suffered it, and then kind of how much it limited him after that, being a high-speed athlete, those kind of things. So, yeah, I mean, we'll wait for scans, but I'm bracing for kind of 4 to 6 weeks for Murray. And he's had a few concerns with that. I think the one earlier this year was the calf, but he had a hamstring injury at the end, like last season as well. So he's had a few little soft tissue injuries there that he's had to deal with. So that's probably going to come into consideration when they talk about, like, how quick do they rush him back.
Very true, especially with the Cowboys being sort of losing touch there fairly quickly. Next was the Sharks versus the Roosters. So Jesse Raymond was ruled out pre-game with a hamstring injury, which is reportedly as a low-grade injury. Then Victor Radley with a bit of a shoulder update. I've got to say, Brian, I did like the Victor Radley aesthetic with the headgear and the post-try celebrations. The aesthetic was looking good there for Victor, but the shoulder, what are we dealing with here?
Mate, Victor was pretty cheeky. I think it was on the post-match coverage, maybe this week or last week. They were talking about his concussions, and he said, and I loved it. Like, it was so good because Victor's actually, funnily enough, been real good in the past, talking about like tackle technique and how he works really hard on it and those kind of things. And that's just music to my ears, mate. Like, evidence-based, give it to me more. But this time he said what they've identified is like under fatigue. So when he's at the end of his stints, they're finding that he's like getting lazy and not getting himself into good positions. And it seems to happen always late in his stints. So he was saying, look, I'm working on my fitness. I'm really smashing my fitness, trying to get that going. And I was like, oh, Victor, this is so good for people to hear. This is fantastic. I love you getting this message across. And then he finished the interview by saying, yeah, boys, I just hope now I've got this headgear, the concussion issues are behind me. And I was like, no.
Damn it.
No. Victor.
It's too good. Yeah, it's too good to be true.
You build me up and then you just break me.
Yeah.
So, yeah. But, the shoulder, look, they're actually quite concerned that it was significant. I didn't see the mechanism. I only saw him on the sidelines kind of pointing to around where his AC joint is. So hopefully it's more AC joint rather than glenohumeral or ball and socket joint. But the word out of the Roosters over the weekend was that they were worried it's significant. So if it's a significant AC joint injury, you're still only looking at about a month. So he could be back relatively quickly. But if it's like a glenohumeral joint, that could be end of season for him. So hopefully just the AC joint. And then, yeah, Jesse Ramien with the hamstring here, that was just tight. Well, sorry, James. We've had our issues with tightness because, I'm sure we'll talk about it sometime during this. But, calf tightness costs some players 3 weeks. We've heard hamstring tightness here. So potentially, are they, is there as much silly buggers going on here? Hopefully not. And like tightness as a legitimate symptom usually only costs guys a week. So hopefully that's what it is for Jesse Ramien.
Yeah, fingers crossed for Ramien because I am an owner and have been an owner sadly for a long time. And he's got the Bunnies on tap next week. So that is a very good matchup if he can get around for that game. Speaking of the Bunnies, they're next on the list with the Panthers. So as we always say with the Bunnies, a few names to get through here. So Latrell Mitchell was a quad injury that was pre-game. Cody Walker was a calf injury pre-game. Cody's probably been nearly leading the charge on the Magic Sponge here this year, Brian, for mention. Same with Davvy Moale with a wrist injury. Keaon Koloamatangi has been reported as a high-grade syndesmosis injury that's going to need surgery, so his season's most likely done. Then lastly on the list from the Panthers was a guy that we both traded in this week, and Brian Toto, with probably an exacerbation of his knee injury or something around a similar neck of the woods there that he may have injured or re-injured in that area. Hey,
yeah, I think so. It looked like he caught, like it was described as a knock to the knee, and then you saw the mechanism. He kind of copped a blow straight over the outside of his knee, which is where he's got that LCL injury. So if he's already got damage to the ligament, unlikely for that to cause significant damage to the tendon. And we'll talk about that with Tino later with a similar mechanism of injury. So hopefully it's just kind of, he's knocked into it, stirred it up. Because I think even post-match, Ivan Cleary was kind of saying, because the journalists are saying, are you tempted to give him like a few weeks off? Because, and Ivan sort of said, well, that's what we did last week. And he's like, look, we'll go away and assess it. If he's good to go, we'll keep rolling him out there. So, as a owner, I'm hopeful, but more like, even just viewing it as a physio or as guys who like to look at injuries, I wasn't overly concerned with the mechanism there. Then there was some reports of hamstring cramping from the sideline. So I don't know. Yeah, the sideline reporting's been all over the shop this weekend. So I'm not going to put too much stock in that, mate. The Rabbits, it is just, it's just crazy the amount that these guys are having to deal with. I mean, I made my big call, Latrell, last weekend. He was coming into my team. I did a big video up for the Ballers, planting my flag. Latrell was coming in. I was keen as, and like literally less than 24 hours later, Latrell got ruled out. And so, got flamed in the comments for that. The physio curse was well and truly. I think if it had been any other club other than the Rabbits, I would have worn the curse angle, but I don't think this was me. I think this was Souths. I think this, Souths have just got that curse this year and last year for that matter. So quad injury, out for at least a month, but once again, it's like, what's that? So 20, 21, 22, 23. So maybe 24.
Buying around 26 anyway, mate, I think. So
yeah.
really, are you going to see him before the buy and before the end of the year? It's probably not going to happen, is it?
And I'm just like,
don't
but
know.
even from South's perspective, mate, do you bring him back? Like Jai Gray's going to be back, I think, in a couple of weeks. So do you just finish the season out with Jai Gray and not risk Latrell? Then I doubt they're going to be challenging for finals. So I would lean towards his season being over. But this time of the year, and I think we've said this in previous seasons, it becomes so much less about injuries. Like we're probably the least accurate of the entire year at this time of the year because different teams have different priorities, right? It's not about getting guys out and winning footy games. There's this other thing of do we really care about winning footy games? Or are we just going to leave it till next season? And that's hard for us, or harder for us to predict. So, I just think I mean, yeah, I'm not optimistic about him playing again this year. 3 guys who won't play again this year: Cody Walker, Davvy Moale, and Keaon. So Keaon, yeah, I mean, we all saw the mechanism. I was pretty you very rarely diagnostic with video, but as soon as I saw the mechanism, I was like, yeah, that surgery is the first thought that popped in my head when you see that kind of mechanism where his foot just gets stuck and his whole body comes down over the top of it. He's a big boy. That's a lot of force. Yeah, it's more often than not going to end up in surgery. So 6 to 8 weeks. So yeah, they're not going to bring him back before the end of the year. Cody Walker, just like a calf injury in recovery from the hamstring. It is. I reckon I'm confident in saying this is the worst season I've seen from one single player as it comes to like muscle strains. Like I've never seen a worse season. The absolutely horrible to have like 5 or 6 different ones and just back to back to back to back to back. Yeah, absolutely horrible. Another guy who I forgot to put in the run sheet there, but Campbell Graham, he was out with that ongoing back issue. He was like, there's even chat that the Souths are considering shutting him down for the year as well. So, oh boy, yeah. I mean, South, it is. I mean, we said dog's breakfast before. It's an absolute dog's breakfast. I just, yeah. I mean, look, there's probably not a whole lot to talk about on those guys. I mean, have you got you're pretty happy with Brian To'o? I mean, if he was named next week, would you, if you weren't an owner, what would you say to people considering buying him? Because they've still got a pretty good 3-week stretch.
Yeah, I think the stretch is good for 3 weeks. I think you just want to hope that when Nathan Cleary comes back, this team just gets hot and you just get on the back of the back line and things fall his way. Like, I think he was playing right wing the other night, wasn't he? So I think Jenkins and Casey McLean were doing the business there, but you just hope that it just balances out on the right-hand side. Isaac Tungo's back. But Paul Alamotti did get a try. He got some meat there the other night. So they do play it fairly balanced. The Panthers are not super heavy. The only thing that might bring the Rabbitohs guys back, Brian, I just thought about this then, was Alec Johnson's try scoring record. I don't know how many he's away at the moment.
I think it's 5
from memory.
I
Okay,
think.
so
Yeah.
maybe if they said, okay, we'll rally the troops together for 3 more games and see if we can get it done this year, or maybe we get this guy as close as we possibly can. Maybe there's a bit of incentive there for the Bunnies just to front up and play. But again, I don't know. You probably got to do a risk reward there with Tari, Ferrari, and Latrell as well. So I don't know how they'll approach that. To be honest, it'll be a bit of a wait and see. Next game on the slate, Brian, was the Raiders versus the Eels. Junior Paulo here from the Eels was an eye injury. Do we have much on detail there, Brian? I don't have much to go off. Sorry.
Yeah, not really. Like his his eye really swelled up. So I think we all saw it closed over. It was still closed over this morning. So a lot of people asking, what was it? Unfortunately, we haven't heard anything. What causes it to swell up like that? The thing is that the space between the skin and the bone in that area, there's not a lot. And so it's like when you get a knock to the head, it's why you can get a lump quite easily come up on your head, is because the blood doesn't have any tissue to disperse itself into, right? It's not like in your quad where you cop a knock and the blood can kind of disperse itself in amongst the quad. Here, it's just got nowhere to go and it just kind of, balloons up and swells up. So he's obviously copped a knock in there. The fluid's all collected around his eye. What that cause could be, it could be an eye issue. It could just be a contusion or, like an issue with the soft tissue around there. So they didn't seem too concerned with it. He did stay on. So I would assume there's no fracture there or anything like that at this point in time.
Yeah, good summary, Brian. Next was the Bulldogs versus the Dragons. So before the game, Val Holmes was ruled out with a shoulder injury that's going to need reconstructive surgery. So his season is done. Then Bronson Xerri was managing a groin issue. So that was a pre-game update. And then out of this game, so Sitili Tupouniua is a hamstring re-injury. And then Sione Finau is a shoulder dislocation. So his season's most likely over, I believe, as well for Finau there. So the whole left edge there for the Dragons is kind of available all of a sudden, which is kind of interesting for fantasy purposes, I think, Brian. Not that I have the trades to do much, but for those that do, there might be someone who just bobs up there, or probably drafters, I think, is probably the one. You're getting to the end of the year, you're probably losing some players. You want to try and find out who's getting named on that edge to try and sneak a few meat pies there, because they do go that way fairly frequently, don't they?
Mate, could you be tempted to a fourth time for Christian Tuipulotu?
That's a firm no. So I feel like you probably feel like about Penrith outside backs after trading in Ty O'Brien. You probably just been like, oh god, what
When
are
I
they?
saw him
They've got to
limping
get stuck
off,
in.
like I was just like, this is like, I can't believe I didn't remember the Penrith outside back curse when I brought him in, because I'm like, you idiot, Brian. Like, you should have known. Thankfully, it wasn't too bad. But yeah, look, brutal. Like the Val Holmes one, like apparently he was absolutely fine, and he just copped that Lindsay Collins just flopped on him on the ground, like Val was just lying there. Boom, tore his rotator cuff. Season over, done. Like it's just So apparently they considered playing him through to the end of the season, but the damage is pretty extensive, and they're thinking around a 6-month recovery. And then the Dragons are in Vegas next year, so they're 2 weeks earlier than everyone else. So the indication I got from the Dragons was that they didn't want to risk it in terms of leaving it another 8 weeks, because if you leave it another 8 weeks from now, you're looking at what's that, near the end of September, and then 6 months. Yeah, you're getting in and around when he needs to be going. So this way, they get in, get it done now. He'll be 100% good to go come round 1 next year in Vegas, which I'm sure, as much as he hated missing the last 8 rounds to get a guarantee that you'll be right to go on the plane to Vegas, I'm sure Val was he would have been pretty happy about that.
Yeah.
Right. So Bronson Xerri, he's dealing with an ongoing groin issue. They haven't sort of said that. I think it was just a management week, so potentially next week or the week after for him, but that'll be something to linger around for a while. Sione Finau with his shoulder dislocation, best case 4 to 6 weeks, but more than likely season over, I think, with the position that their season is in. And Sitili Tupouniua, Gus, our good friend of the show, Gus Gould, came out and said it is same hamstring, low grade, but in a different hamstring muscle to the previous one. So for those playing at home who may not know, you have 3 hamstring muscles in each leg. So yeah, this is obviously a different one of those 3 in the same leg. But as I've said, we've spoken about in the past, it does that isn't a major thing, right? It he's still suffered a recurrence. It's still something they're going to have to be really careful with on his return. So yeah, I think it's splitting hairs. At the end of the day, it's another hamstring injury. It just keeps increasing his risk. So they've just got to be careful with it.
Yeah, well summarised, Brian. So we'll go into the Storm versus Manly next. So Reuben Garrick had a shoulder concern in DCE with a quad concern, Brian. What do you want to launch into for this game?
Yeah, pretty quick ones. Garrick had an AC joint issue, but telling that he stayed on the entire game, and Tommy Talau was on the bench. So I think he just copped, he scored a try and landed on that shoulder. So pain management, he'll probably get a needle. He'll probably, have it padded up next week. He is an increased aggravation risk moving forward over the next couple of weeks. But as we saw, he aggravated it in this game and still played the entire game. So nothing too crazy with an outside back. If he was a middle forward, it'd be a bit different because he's getting through 40 tackles a game. And DC just had a quad cork. I had a few people messaging me saying he was in a knee brace, but by what I have found out, it was just a wrap, like a compression wrap. So yeah, he should be sweet. But once again, a little bit. I don't think he was kicking as much towards the end of the game, so that's probably the biggest thing. It might limit his kicking a little bit over the next week or so.
Very good, Brian. We'll go to the Tigers versus Titans next. So Samuela Fainu has been reported as a knee concern, that he's sort of been managing patella instability type symptoms. That looks like he might have had an MCL sort of exacerbation there. Then the other one is Tino from the Titans. I guess you put up a video of his knee mechanism today. What are you suspicious of there based on the video that you got?
Yeah, mate, this is where my faith in what was coming out of the sideline was truly tested, because I wasn't sitting down watching this game. So I was kind of only catching bits and pieces and relying on, thankfully, and really appreciate when people message me with info. And apparently the first report came through a lateral ligament injury and he's going to be out for 4 to 6 weeks. And I was like, oh boy. So I quickly was like, well, that's big news. I'll sit down and check the mechanism. And the mechanism involved direct contact to the outside of the knee. So that would usually, if we're going to talk about a ligament injury, you'd usually either stress your MCL or your PCL. So if it pushed the knee back, like say a Reece Walsh when he suffered his, you'd look at a PCL injury, or knocking the knee from the outside inwards, you'd stretch the MCL. Very, very rarely would it cause an LCL injury. I'd say that'd be a first for that kind of mechanism type. But then the craziest thing was of the whole thing is like he'd been, ruled out for 4 to 6 weeks, but they put him on the bike. He was on the bike, and I'm going, what's he doing on the bike with a ligament injury? Because 4 to 6, you're looking at like a partial tear of a ligament, so instability. Get him in a ROM brace, get him in a brace to stabilize that thing. He was on the bike, then he went in at halftime, came back out, was running up and down the sideline like trying to keep loose, and then they're going, it's a lateral ligament injury. He will only come back if absolutely needed. But then he's like running around. I'm just going, what the heck is happening? So this was one of the most confusing ones for me, because as much as I rely on the video, I also at the end of the day, the team are the best possible people to be, assessing these kind of things. So information from them is really important too. So the sideline, reports are really good in helping me give, an accurate sort of education to fans as much as possible about the different possibilities. But this was just all over the shop. So if I ignore, because I'm kind of, I think effectively where I'm at is that I think the Titans are worried about his lateral knee, not his medial knee or his PCL, because looking purely at the video, that's what I would be most worried about, would be the MCL or the PCL, but that doesn't seem to be a concern for them. So if it's lateral knee, I'm not that stressed, because I think it's just a bone bruise. He just copped a really hard knock to the outside of his knee. Maybe he's got a fibular head fracture as a worst case scenario. The fibula is a little bone on the outside there, but I'm not super stressed by a knock to the outside of the knee if the concern is the outer side of the knee. Before I throw to you on Tino, Samuela Fainu, I just saw him in a brace still today. So a week out, still in a brace. I think the Tigers said he could be back next week. But I mean, if he's still in a brace a week out, so I know you can sometimes put minor MCL injuries in a brace, but 2 to 3 days max, James. You're not chucking a grade one. I'm not chucking grade ones in a brace really ever. But if it's super painful, I'll do it, but not for very long at all. So the fact he's still in a brace has me a little bit concerned that he might be facing multiple weeks on the sideline. But what was your impression of Tino? This one's a bit all over the shop. So if I was an owner, I'd be optimistic if a 50-50 on next week or the week after. So I'm pretty hopeful that it's not a 4 to 6 weeker.
Yeah, it looks to me more like a contact injury. I think I said to you off air, it sort of looks like that spot where you get hit, to the cricketers amongst us, between your pad and your thigh pad on that outside part of your knee, just where that sweet spot is, where you can get hit in there. It can be really quite tender and painful, right at the top of that distal part of your femur. So it looks probably a bit more like that to me, because there wasn't a lot of stress through the knee from a side-to-side perspective, through the medial MCL and LCL from that perspective for people playing at home. So I think he'd be touch and go for this week, but if he's not playing this week, I'd almost lock him in for next week, is how it looked to me from the naked eye. So I guess we'll wait and see what the update is there for Tino. So Knights Warriors was next on the slate, Brian. So Kirk Capewell with a knee injury, Origin Dane Gagai with a cork, and then Aaron Clark here is a Control-C, Control-V type situation with cramping again. We sort of mentioned Aaron Clark of the weekly, Brian, don't we? He needs to suck in some pickle juice at halftime or something like that, Aaron Clark, doesn't he? We need a regime for him.
Mate, I get like 15 messages a week on Aaron Clark, and it comes without fail in the last 10 minutes of every game when he cramps up and limps off. He was only on for 6 or 7 minutes in his second stint this time, and he was cramping up hard. I'm like, mate, we need some Botox in those calves or something, mate. he needs to calm them down because, more cramping. So I reckon this is about the 6th or 7th time this year that we've had him on here just for cramping. So until otherwise noticed, just if Aaron Clark comes off early, just assume that it's cramps, I think, until proven otherwise. Dane Gagai was a cork, and then Kurt Capewell, there was nothing really mechanism-wise on his knee. He played through it for a considerable amount of time and came off with about 15 to go. So, we'll wait and see on that one.
Yep, sounds good, mate. All right, so lastly, we need to wrap the NRLW, don't we? So Ja'Kai Whitfield was a hamstring injury that was ruled out. She was ruled out pre-game. Jacinta Carter was a double HIA fail. Shalom Sawaso was a sternum injury. Tara McGrath West was a foot injury. Chelsea Saville, was a quad concern, and Bobby Law was an appendix. So she's probably someone who had to take the old appendix out there, Bobby Law. Never a fun time having the appendix out, having had mine out myself.
Yeah, mate, 8 weeks or up to 8 weeks, they think she'll miss. So a bit of time for Bobby Law, unfortunately. Ja'Kai Whitfield, this is where we really start to see the NRLW playing a bit of shenanigans because we don't know Whitfield, and she's a big favourite of the Magic Sponge, mate. From a couple of seasons ago, we were all over her as an absolute gun. So we're not sure how long she'll be out for. Jacinta Carter, probably the most interesting one for people. She had 2 HIAs in a game. Doesn't matter what the result of that second HIA is, you cannot come back to a game after having 2 HIAs within that game, even if you pass both. So, apart from that, I think Tara McGrath West is the only one worth, it was a foot issue that there was no obvious mechanism. As we've spoken about in the past, we don't love those. But we'll see what comes back. But mate, 2 good weeks in the W for injuries. Like no, I don't want to curse it, touch wood, but no ACLs, no, big MCL injuries, no syndesmosis, no shoulder dislocations. It's been pretty good. So, long may it continue.
Yeah, here, up the W, all about it as usual. So, Brian, we got through all the injuries from this week just gone. So let's launch into the questions. So thanks to everyone submitting these through the broadcast channel. As per usual, Brian, I do want to give a quick shout out here to the Sunny Coast Falcons, if I may take the floor for 1 minute.
Sure.
But we talked a lot about, that young fella from Namel Crushers, Robbie Caldwell, who's battling motor neurone. It was Old Boys Day at Sunny Coast Falcons today, so I saw them clip up some things on the socials. They got the job done, 42-4, and Robbie Caldwell actually led them out today. So it was really nicely done for him. He played about 100 games across grades there between 20s, Fogs, and A grade. His older brother obviously played about 100 games between the Dolphins and Sunny Coast Falcons. And his dad was obviously a coach there for a couple of years just after the Manly merger sort of dissolved there. So there's some tough years for the Falcons. But really good to see the rugby league community getting behind him again. And obviously we had him in camp getting the Queensland boys motivated to get them home the other night in game 3. So it was really nicely done there by the Falcons. I think they do a good job on the socials, the Falcons there, for those playing along at the Sunny Coast, or the Honey Toast up here, as the locals say. So good to see that stuff, and good to see him, as he's pushing through an awful degenerative neurological illness there, Robbie Caldwell. So, Brian, question number 1 through the broadcast channel, let's launch into them, is with the new information, what are your thoughts on Ryan Pappenhausen? Is he worth holding for Supercoach purposes if he's named next week, or do you think it's time to jump off and move on to someone else? What's your gut feeling on Paps?
Yeah, I think it was probably a bit unfortunate timing this week, because we kind of Paps did an interview where he made something where he's like, oh, I think it was on 2GB or something, said it's something I'm going to have to manage for the rest of the year. It sounded pretty not that great. So I kind of posted something in the broadcast channel. I then went on Beers and Break Evens with the boys and sort of said, look, definite sell. But then we got real good clarification on what was going on Paps. It was literally 6 hours after I went on the show and kind of put something in the broadcast channel. All of a sudden we knew exactly what the injury was. And it's God damn it. So it doesn't change it too much for me in that, I think, especially if you've got the trades, I'd still rather someone a bit healthier than a Paps, for example, especially in that fullback spot or that flex spot. I'd rather have the 3 halfbacks than Paps, for example, is where I sit, because we now know that it's a minor strain. Paps himself sort of said at the time, and geez, it wouldn't be a week without Brien copping another message from the Storm medical staff with colourful colourful language, degrading the profession, these kind of things. So yeah, good old fun. Love the Storm, but we got clarification. Paps is like, look, it's just a minor strain. Look, like perfectly normal for not normal, but typical for a minor strain to take 2 to 3 weeks, as we've spoken about in the past. When there is a strain, it is common for rehab to take a little bit longer than usual. That's obviously what's happening here with these calf injuries. So, but overall, I just think if you've got the trades, I'd sell. So if you don't have like Keaon, Dylan Lucas, these kind of guys sitting there whose seasons are definitely over, like I'd trade them out first probably. But otherwise, like even if Pappenhausen's named this week, I'd be looking to get the 3 halfbacks. I'd be looking to get like another fullback, like maybe a Reece Walsh, who's granted dealing with injury concerns himself, but probably not as concerning as like a Pappenhausen dealing with a calf, because there's no guarantee that he gets the goal kicking back straight away with coming off a calf strain that's kind of lingered around. What have you got for me, James? You're our SuperCoach expert, although we're both doing as shit as each other at the moment. But what would you do with Paps?
It's a really good question, mate. Like I traded him out last week to trade in Brian Toto, so that hasn't exactly worked out for me by any stretch of the imagination. I guess when you look at his draw upcoming, let's look at that, Brian, and see if we get tasty draw upcoming. So we've got Roosters, Para, Broncos, Penrith, Bulldogs, Roosters, Broncos. So they get the Roosters twice and the Broncos twice in the next 6 weeks, which is a bizarre draw. I don't know how the NRL comes up with this, seriously. Then in between there, they've got the Panthers and the Bulldogs. So it's not exactly a straightforward run. So you probably got, the Broncos are sitting 5th, the Bulldogs are entrenched in 2nd or 3rd, and the Panthers are just in 6th, but they're starting to move. The Roosters are going to be desperate to try and make the 8. They're just outside at the moment, but they're all reasonably solid teams. I know perhaps is as matchup proof as they come, but it's not exactly a draw that I look at and go, oh, I really want a piece of that. I think he's probably come through the better part of the draw that he could have had recently. So I think for those purposes, I think it would be more than reasonable to move him on. I like the play to Cleary this week, personally. I think if you're a Paps owner, you can find an extra 80 grand to get up to Cleary. I think that'd be the way I go about it. I think Cleary's draw upcoming is very, very good. He's got a high ceiling. I think he'll be in sicko mode after getting rolled in Origin 3 as well. So I think you'll see a fight up Nathan Cleary for the run home. So that'd be the way I'd go about it there, mate. What are your thoughts on Paps? Because you traded him just as well too. Did you do Toto, Paps to Toto as well?
Yes, I did. Yeah, 100%. So we both brought in a 30-pointer, and I should have just played Tapine instead. Good times. But even if I had Paps this week, I'd be trading him to Cleary. I just don't think effectively the only thing that's changed for me is he's not a definite trade. Like when there was all that mystery and bullshit around its tightness, but then Paps came out and said, no, it's something that I've got to deal with for the rest of the year. Like I was like, there is way too much mystery going on here. At least we have clarification now. So I can see a world where you'd hold, especially if you've got like injuries coming out your ass and, you're not really sure. But yeah, I'd still lean sell more than hold at this point in time.
Yeah, and I think the week just gone, Brian, like I think it looks like 25,000 people sold him out this week, and second only to Dylan Lucas. So his ownership percentage will probably drop into like, the mid-low 20s. So I could hear the argument to anti-potting, but I think with the draw, I don't know if that's the most sensible thing to do. I think you might really miss out on some big points there, would be the other thing to consider. Question 2, Brian, is are you expecting the injury risk for Mitch Moses to be high, especially with the amount of kicking he does, general play and goal kicking for Para?
Yeah, like I less like the kicking comes into it a little bit for me, but it's more the fact that he's had multiple calf issues now in one season. I mean, the severe end of this is like a Cody Walker, for example. We see, and that's obviously worst case scenario. But yeah, I wouldn't say the kicking is like a small percentage to me, but it's more just the fact that he's had like multiple calf issues this season. So I wouldn't say it's high, but it's definitely remains elevated, kind of above what you'd have for a typical calf injury. So he's someone who I think Para are going to take their time with bringing back, because like they've obviously kind of gone, I think we've seen with Dylan Brown kind of starting, not playing, like they're kind of got their eye towards the future. So it wouldn't surprise me if they just take their time. And if Moses even has like the littlest niggle there, they'll just hook him off, those kind of things. So I don't think it's a rush for Moses.
Yeah, I still think there's value to be had for Parra. Like, I know Jason Rolls has given these younger guys a bit of a run because he wants to be clear in what his roster looks like next year. So I think it's pretty important for Mitch Moses to get back this year. So I don't think his season is done and dusted by any stretch. So it'd be one to watch about when he comes back. If he's penciled in at 21 or maybe 22, you'll probably see him back around that stage. Question 3, Brian, is about the Rabbitohs. So surely they need to look into their injury tolls. Like the last 2 years can't just be a coincidence, can it?
Oh, mate, the soft tissue stuff, there's well and truly a pattern there now. Like we've seen with Cody Walker, and yes, he's an older gentleman. So, obviously that increases your risk and you can see these things kind of happen. But when you put it in the context of all the other soft tissue injuries that have occurred, and like we've got Latrell suffering a quad injury now, I think Souths are definitely going to be, or more than likely going to be, investigating what's going on. I think the hardest thing, and as I've said, we've talked about in the past, is that this is just totally separate performance stuff, as far as I'm aware. That I could be wrong there, but what I read online was that Wayne brought in a whole new staff with him, performance staff. So head of performance all the way down. So yeah, it's happened 2 years in a row now, but with two totally different setups, two different head coaches, different performance. So, I was speaking to a friend of the show, Phil Lutton, who's an ex-journo, used to work for, I'm going to get this wrong, but Brisbane Times, like Sydney Morning Herald, that kind of stuff. And he's a big Rabbitohs man. And he was just saying, it's just an aging roster, it's such an old roster. Could that be it? But, you've got guys like Cam Murray, Latrell, these kind of guys suffering these injuries. So, and the Keaon one's just a fluke. There's nothing, and you're always going to get those injuries. So I'm not really worried about those. It's more the soft tissue stuff, which are a little bit more, I guess, predictable depending on workloads and those kind of things. But yeah, the Rabbitohs are definitely going to have to do a review of it because it's 2 seasons now. Something's not quite right. But yeah, it's hard. From the outside looking in, and I'm sure from the inside looking in, it's hard to tell, because if it was easy, they'd fix it, right? They would have fixed it long ago. So yeah, I don't think it's as easy as saying, oh, it's been really bad, because as I said, there's two kind of different setups there in the last 2 years. But yeah, something's not quite right there, I don't think. What about you, mate?
Yeah, there's a lot of bad luck on top of that as well around the soft tissue stuff Brian hasn't there. I think there's been a few non-contact things. I know Campbell Graham's sternum injury, that was really, really rare. They've faced a few other things that have, really stretched the squad. Ty Munro with his repeat collarbone stuff. There's just been a lot of things there that have got very, very complex on the bunnies. And, I don't know if that's really a fault of their own. It can just be sometimes injury situations that are a little bit more challenging than others. I think that's the nature of what we deal with sometimes, isn't it? So, yeah, a lot of things will probably go under review at the end of this year for the Rabbits because they're running second last. So, as soon as you're running bad like that, then there's going to be finger pointing or
It's
investigations.
Wayne Bennett
And
curse. We've broken it.
maybe.
We've broken it. Because
Yeah.
Wayne's struggling more down there than the Finns are up here. So fantastic. Good
Yeah.
to hear.
Yeah.
Healthy.
Well, it
Well
wasn't looking
done.
good after the first 4 weeks
Oh,
for you
mate,
guys,
don't
was
talk
it?
to me about it. Don't talk to me
But
about it.
that's a distant memory now that you boys are flying. So, play on for the Finns. Question 4, Brian. Is there an estimated time for returning for Ben Lovett? I haven't heard a Scooby-Doo update about Ben Lovett in ages, sorry.
Yeah, well, it's almost gone on 2 years since he suffered a patella tendon rupture. Look, there's been so from the Rabbits, he suffered in Cup. I think not the end of last year, end of the season before. Look, mate, everything that I've heard, which is very, very scarce, but I heard recently that it's heading. Sorry, I won't say it's heading. It's potentially heading towards medical retirement. There's a bit of chat around that. So this is I think we've had questions on here in the past. What's the worst injury, for rehab? Is it ACL, blah, blah? And we've constantly said it's not that. It's tendon stuff. So it's patella tendon, Achilles, those kind of things. And this is your perfect example. It's not often that an ACL is a career ender these days because, unless you have multi-ligament, major problems, but there are definitely several circumstances where significant tendon rupture injuries are career enders because, you can have this. So, hopefully Lovett's okay and he can get back to playing. But, it's been almost 2 years now, so a long, long stint.
Yeah, it's probably always on my radar. I haven't heard his name even spoken about for such a long time, but obviously there's some random South fans that are curious about that. Next question, Brian, is about with all the forward injuries, would you be tempted to grab Hamole Olakau'atu if he's named this week for the Manly Seagulls?
Yeah, so I've got 2 forwards I've got to trade out in Lucas and Koloamatangi. Olakau'atu is just not someone I've got only 2 trades left. If I had 8 trades left, then yes, definitely. But because effectively the reason I say that is because you have to bring him in and hold one to your side to trade him back out again. Because I don't know if you saw, and I forgot to message this to you, and I was talking to an ex-sports doc who used to treat JT about this because he was wearing, remember JT's old shoulder stabilization brace that loops down around the opposite thigh? So Olakau'atu had that. He's wearing that at training. So what I'm saying is that shows you how the state of his shoulder, right, is like JT was wearing that when his shoulder was absolutely cooked cactus. And Olakau'atu is also wearing the same. So it's obviously not in the best state at this point in time. So you bring him back. His performance should be still really good. It's more re-injury risk. It could pop out at any time, ticking time bomb kind of areas. So if you've got a few trades, it's a good upside move. But if you've got limited trades like me, no, thank you. What about you, mate?
I think there's way more. I could name sort of 5 or 6 off the top of my head. I guess if you don't have Huddy Young, you could go Huddy Young. Zach Hoskins going pretty good. Both the Bulldogs edge back rows are probably on a piece of Cacao or Preston. You could make an argument there. Katoa from the Storm. No one really jumps out from the Warriors, the Broncos, but even from the Sharks, Briton Nikora is going pretty soundly. Gus Crichton's pretty affordable. Isaiah Yeo's probably the one at Penrith he's reasonably priced now, and he's just coming off the back of Origin, had the rest this week, so he's going to give you 80 minutes every week. We love a bit of missionary Isaiah on the podcast here as per usual, but yes, there's heaps of other options there. I'll be going instead of Hamole or Kawadu. I think, Brian, that'd be the way I slice it up this week. Tinfoil hat question, Brian. Always love this stuff. This is probably more of this, if anything, if we can get more of this stuff on. But has there ever been any known incidents of players faking injuries? How easy would it be to get away with things like this on the footy field or off the footy field on the training paddock? This is very tinfoily, but I like it.
Mate, I've never had a question more up your alley than this question, I reckon. The thing I will say is that I don't think it's super easy to fake in that, like, the physio would have a fair idea because you can kind of through your assessments, your hands-on assessments, you can get a fair idea of if a player's just having you on or not in terms of their strength with different tests. You use, like I use often, and not to stereotype, but sometimes there's some injuries involving, say, insurance or work cover that I'm a bit suspect on, and you just use tests out of the ordinary. So ones that you haven't done with people before, you try and distract them. I don't want to give away too many trade secrets here, James, but there's ways you can kind of get around and try and figure out exactly what's going on. And then, like, hands-on testing is really, really important. So, if a player's saying, oh, I've definitely got a really bad MCL injury, but you do your hands-on test and you're like, this feels absolutely fine. But as much as I would say it's hard to fake it from a position of, say a physio, and then there's scans, of course. I totally forgot to mention that. Like, there's obviously scans which can tell you. But at the end of the day, if a player insists that they're in a lot of pain, and they're, like, adamant, a bit like the Dave Fifita example from recent weeks, right? Like, even if you're like, oh, look, I think he's faking this, if that's what the Titans medical staff thought, it's impossible to prove because it could be psychosomatic, which is still very, very, important pain. It could be nerve-related pain. There's so many different causes of pain. So, yeah, it's as much as you could probably, especially knowing the player's personality, you could be like, oh, I'm a bit sus here. It's hard to kind of be like, no, you're definitely faking it. Like, that is really, really difficult and probably not the best thing for medical staff to be putting on players. I've never heard of an example of it publicly. I'm sure there have been examples of it over the time. But yeah, mate, have you got anything to add there that I've missed or get your tinfoil hat on?
No, I'm trying to think of it like situations where people have been obviously faking injury. Like lay down Sally Robbins is one from like a cultural or Olympic sort of era thing in the rowing, which obviously got a lot of media attention because she wasn't faking it. She just quit. She just laid down and just said, "Yeah, catch you later, gals. I'm done." But I'm trying to think of other instances like, they're probably you probably see it a little bit more, not in NFL circles for faking injury, but people having contract holdouts or holdouts to do with contract disputes or, "Oh, I've got a sore shoulder or I'm rehabbing something else. I'm not going to be at the team facility. I'm going to do this, on my time or company time." I think even like Shaquille O'Neal wasn't someone who faked injury, but I think he had like a fifth metatarsal injury that he had to get surgery on. And he said, "No, I'm doing this in season. I'm going to have my off season. I'm going to have my fun. And then I'm going to rehab it on company time." So he had his surgery in the year. And obviously Kobe Bryant was blowing up because he's like, "Mate, if you just rehab this at the start of the off season, you'd be right." But Shaq was like, "Nah, like that's not my thing." He's like, I rehab this on company time. So I just don't think that sort of culture perpetuates in the NRL. Like these guys play through so much each and every week. I think there's a fairly tight-knit bond and a fairly tight-knit understanding of these things. How easy would it be to get away with it? I agree with you, Brian. It'd be very, very, very difficult. The only place you might have some luck would be maybe with some spinal-related things, where if you scan someone, they might have an incidental finding that you might be able to pin it on. But again, you get a intervention around that. So do you really want to get intervened on knowing that you're faking injury as well? That's probably going to be detrimental to your health regardless. So yeah, I don't know. I don't know if there's been any other situations or any other things like that that come up from my top of the dome sort of stuff there. But yeah, it's a good tinfoily question. I think there's a lot of layers to that though, Brian, isn't there? My
The
God, there's a lot of
culture,
layers.
the culture thing you said there, I think is so true, right?
Yeah, you're
like
just
you
not going to see
just,
it in this culture.
yeah, boys want to play. It's so far the other direction.
100%.
Like you
Yeah,
and I see that in athletes all the time, not even at the professional level. Like it's like you flick that switch where you get like, and I think that's what drives them to be pro athletes, right? Is that they have that thing where it's like, I am playing no matter what. Like you try and stop me. Yeah, so it's I'd be surprised if there's been too many over the time.
yeah, I can't think of anyone in league circles of this. Anyway, to start off with. Next question, Brian, is this question says there's certain players like Daly Cherry Evans or Cam Smith, the GOAT, that never seem to get injuries, and there's others that do a lot, like a Tom Trbojevic or a Pappenhausen. Has anyone attempted to study these players to understand what they're doing differently? Is it all luck? Is there other factors that need to be explored in a bit more detail? What do you reckon?
Yeah, I think there's definitely factors to it. Like I think genetic factors play a role, ligament laxity, muscle strength, muscle fascicle length, all these kind of things which are inherently handed down to you from your parents. But like I think overall, I believe, and this is something where there's been so much study done into these kind of things, and it's just not clear. Because if it was clear, then there would be teams going out and teams way bigger than the NRL, right? It'd be EPL, it'd be NFL, it'd be NBA, would be going out and doing testing on guys being like, "Oh, well, you don't fulfill this, component or this test or this criteria. So you're high injury risk. So see you later." So it's a very, very complex picture. But my big thing, especially with guys like Turbo and Paps, is like snowball effect of previous injury. So like someone like a Turbo suffers one hamstring injury, which makes him an increased risk of another. Then he suffers another, and it just becomes like this self-fulfilling prophecy of like, once you have that history, it just, can increase and increase. So I think that's a big thing, is that you get compensations, you get, adaptations in the tissue, all that kind of stuff. So that's probably my biggest thing is you get players who are 10 years into their career, and one player like a DC or a Cam Smith has had very little, whereas someone like Turbo or perhaps has had such a history. It's that snowball effect, right? But the other way is how they play too. Like I think that's a massive thing too. They used to say that like Cam Smith was, he's not only is the GOAT, he's one of the like the best going around with that kind of, that kind of nous in terms of how you play. So I think for him, it's kind of that smarts and kind of how you play. And DC probably falls into that as well, I think. What about you, Matt? Did I miss anything there?
No, I don't think so. Positional demand is probably the big one there straight off the bat, isn't there? So I think you probably see a lot of those guys that are more durable playing in the halves where there's less, contact. Cam Smith is the exception. He's just, the GOAT and the Iron Man of all Iron Mans playing 80 minutes, the way he played the game and making the tackles that he made. But again, he's not someone that would, light someone up in a tackles. He was such a good hit and stick sort of type defender. He was really good at controlling people. And controlling the play, the ball speed, obviously none better at it than that. So probably, the demands of the position are probably the big ones, and luck goes with it. But I think even, it'd be really interesting to drill down training habits. I guess, Cameron Smith will be able to really outline what his training habits look like compared to someone else, and just, Paps and him are from the same system though, so I'm assuming they'd probably have fairly similar training regimes. But even maybe it might come down to, repetition in your younger years with contact type things as well. I guess Cam was playing, and his dad was a footy coach, so he would have been exposed to a lot of stuff from a young age. So maybe it's just repetition with contact that gets you out of trouble there a little bit. It's hard to really know. It's stuff that probably is really difficult to quantify. So lucky last, Brian. So this is an AFL question, so we're going to cross codes here. So Link McCarthy, who is a Brisbane Lions player, he's trying to come back from an ACL tear in about 6 months, which seems a little bit too early. And there's a little bit of interesting stuff around the graft selection that they've used there, or how they've framed the graft selection. It's sort of a one we might sort of touch on with the Arthrex angle as well in this situation, Ryan. But do you want to just give us the situation, give us the graft type, and then 6 months it is unders, isn't it? Let's be fair.
Yeah, like it's an interesting one. I think for AFL, it's definitely a bit quick. Like they're usually 9 months and onwards, just because that 360 degree. I'd say that like NRL guys have come back between 6 and 9 months pretty consistently over the last 15 years. It's gotten out to about 9 months and beyond recently, because the evidence kind of 3-4 years ago started to suggest that, hey, like that re-injury risk from 9 months and on really drops down between 6 and 9 months. Interestingly, James, on this note, good little segue about like new research, because we know we love to sit around and read papers, but another wonderful physio out there, Mick Hughes, posted something recently where the newest research, a big paper came out that suggested that like that 6 to 9 month rule might not be the case. It might just be literally about ticking boxes, like, performance, like the function, those kind of things. So even guys who are coming back at 6 months, as long as they tick all those boxes, they're not as at increased risk compared to those at 9 months. So that's something that's going to be interesting. It's only one paper for the moment, so hopefully there's more evidence that comes out on that. But just like a good insight for anybody listening on the changing landscapes, right? Like of medical information. We're always researching. We're always trying to find new things out, and we prove ourselves wrong all the time. And I think that's really cool. It's really cool that we don't just like look at something and just decide this is it, and then don't like even, and I talk about it all the time, headgear, right? Like at the moment, I'm like, no, headgear does not help with concussion. But if we keep doing research and we come up with something and there's all this solid evidence that headgear helps with concussion, mate, I'll flog headgear off till the cows come home if there's evidence for it. So I find that a really cool part about science and what we do. But this specific case is interesting because, so McCarthy, I've got my phone in front of me because I got to get this right. We don't often answer AFL questions here, but this is an interesting one. So he ruptured his ACL in May last year. Then he was in rehab and he re-ruptured in March of this year. So he's back-to-back ACL injuries. March this year to, I think he wants to return in August, which would be 5.5 months, I think, by my calculations. So pretty short. Now the release from the Lions, and this is where it becomes a bit funny. Rather than undergoing the usual surgery and recovery, which would have ruled him out from appearing in the grand final should Brisbane reach the decider, McCarthy is understood to have gone the non-traditional route by having the torn ACL repaired with a graft from the patella tendon rather than the hamstring tendon. Now, the reason that's a bit of a G up is because calling a patella graft non-traditional is probably the biggest G-up of all time. Like, it is very, very traditional. Not the most common in AFL players, to be fair, but definitely not non-traditional, and also definitely not something that we associate with accelerated recovery times. A bone patella tendon bone graft is wonderful for failure rates, but very rarely involves like a necessarily quicker return to play. Typically, if you're going to go for a really quicker return to play, you get a donor graft. You get a graft from a cadaver, so then you don't have to have two surgical sites. One surgical site to harvest the graft out of your body, and another surgical site to put the graft into your knee. Take that second surgical site out, and you can theoretically, accelerate your return to play. Now, it increases your risk of re-injury, but yeah, I wouldn't say patella tendon increases it. There are plenty of like new surgical procedures, and like we talk about like usual, surgery and all this kind of thing. And I was like, as you say with Arthrex, like they've got some really cool stuff lately about repairing the ACL and then putting their internal brace on, which is like that cord next to it. So they repair the two ends of the ACL together and then stabilize it with like a synthetic cord as well. Like, that's an accelerated option that, all this new tech that's coming out. But yeah, mate, like a patella, like, yeah, it's definitely quick, but this is the kind of thing where, look, the new research is suggesting maybe if he ticks all the boxes, he should be right. The reality overall is that, like, he can play. It's just going to be an increased risk. We say that all the time. It just is. It's not like, because I would say majority of pro athletes at 5.5 months, if you said to them, hey, do you want to go play? They'd be like, hell yeah, I do. And if you let them, they'd play, and you just say, look, you're at an increased risk. Boom, they'd go and play anyway. So it's not too crazy in that respect. But mate, the thing calling a patella tendon graft non-traditional route is that's pretty crazy to me.
Yeah, a little bit of a stretch, isn't it, Brian? And I guess the context to link McCarthy, I don't know if he's a Jet. I don't know what the Lions state of play is with their, premiership window, because AFL always talk about their windows, don't they? They're always in like a building phase or a resetting, rebuild phase. So I think, the Lions seem like they have a pretty young team from what I gather, and obviously they've had good success more recently.
He's a
and
bit
they've had a few
older.
fathers.
He's
Is he?
a veteran. Yep.
Yeah, so whether he's got, limited time left, maybe, I don't know. So it used to be a really interesting thing because they've got, they've got the two father-son Ashcroft boys there who are absolute guns, and they're both like sub 20, which like the father-son rule is the best thing in sport for me.
Yeah,
That's
it's so
unbelievable.
good.
That's a side note. It's the best thing ever. But I think there's a lot of moving factors there. But it's pretty ballsy to come back in 6 months, I reckon, when you've just had one and re-ruptured in March. That's definitely something we haven't seen before. So you might get lucky getting through. But again, you're going to play this guy in a final system off no footy. It's a pretty big risk to take for the Lions there, I think, as well, Brian, isn't it?
Oh, 100%, mate. Yeah. I just, especially off back-to-back ACLs, I think, you're running the gauntlet, but then again, it's a grand final. So how many grand finals are you going to get to play in? Maybe you roll that dice. Mate, let's get into SuperCoach Corner. The baller challenge, run home challenge. Like, seriously, if you have captained Dylan Edwards, if you've scored like 1,300 plus, you need to jump in on this. It's a SuperCoach league. You head along to baller.live, you sign up, you get in there. Like, you give yourself a red hot chance at winning some really good cash for, like, it's no entry fee. I just think it's a win-win. So look, $7,000 in prizes, $3,000 for the winner, payouts all the way down to 10th. It's your second chance to win big. It's live now, and it's live now only until the end of lockout for round 20. So the only people listening to this who will be able to sign up if they haven't are people who listen to this late Sunday night or early Monday morning, because by Monday at 11, it is gone. Your chance is gone. If you're sitting there having scored 1,500, you've lost your chance. So jump in, baller.live. You'll get the link or the league code for your SuperCoach League, and jump in. No stress, no hoops. It's easy as that. So BALLR.live. Your run's home starts now. Unfortunately, James, our run home has not started well. So I will throw to you, and you can tell me how we're going to somehow salvage this situation and try and win some cash off Baller.
Yeah, it's cool. We talked a big game before this week, didn't we, Brian? It almost feels like it's too far gone already. It's just the nature of things. But on the sort of the topic of like signing up, it's only what you use for your SuperCoach. So it's your email, it's a phone number, or if you know someone that skipper Dylan Edwards or had him in the mix, get them onto it. Like, what are you doing? Like, be a good mate and be like, actually, bit of bunts floating around here. Wouldn't mind seeing it. Wouldn't mind a big session with the boys. Get some money and get some fun. That'd be the way I'd approach it. So this week, so as you said, Brian, Struggle Street here again. That's nothing new for this segment on the Magic Sponge. We say this every week. So I went 11.77. I VC James Tedesco. I skippered Jacob Carraz. I thought Carraz was due for some meat, and as soon as he gets meat, he normally gets 100. He only scored 74 this week, so I was like, well, just not my year, unfortunately. I brought in Brian Toto and RTS for Pappenhausen and Dylan Lucas. So that's what I did this week trade-wise. I still think RTS has got the best upcoming schedule of any team in the comp, and I don't know who else I like better at the Warriors. I just wanted to get a Warriors outside back, and I feel like Roger's probably the vibiest one at the present. So I think when I was just looking at his, base and power, I think he was 40 points worth of runs just gone, and he's also thrown in a few tackle breaks as he usually does as well there. But I think Roger's probably not a bad little dip here if you're looking for a little bit of point of difference. He scored 61 with just a line break. So he was 12 in tackle breaks and then 40 in runs. So you're talking like, 55 base and power, or 51 base and power, I should say, with a line on top of that. So he's got pretty good floor. And, as players do on the left wing, sometimes things just fall their way. So I'm hopeful that Roger, with the draw upcoming, he gets the Titans twice before the end of the year. So I'm hopeful that he goes absolutely troppo there, that I can catch up some ground here for the run home challenge. Unfortunately, in that score, I left Zach Hosking on the pine as well. So yeah, such is life sort of gear with that sort of stuff when it happens like that. So what I'm going to do, I've got 2 trades left, Brian. So I think it's Keaon to Angus Crichton or Jaman Hopgood. And then I think it's either Connor Tracy or Jesse Ramien to Nathan Cleary. I think they're my last 2 trades. And I figure, why not just do it this week? I could wait another week, but in the scheme of things, like, I missed out on Dylan Edwards. I might as well just swing for the fences here for the rest of the way. So that's what I'm probably going to do, I reckon. I think Nathan Cleary is probably a really good shout if you're someone that's running 3 fullbacks. I think putting Cleary through a flex is a really good idea. And I think Angus Crichton has got a little bit of upside to him as well. He scored 69 with a try just gone this weekend. He's not super expensive. You know what you get with Angus Crichton every year in Supercoach. He's an absolute gun. Jaman Hopgood go, Brian. We're getting a bit of Queensland spirit here, a bit of Wide Bay region rugby league as well, which is right in your wheelhouse. So I think Jaman was starting prop, which again, I don't rate, but anyway, he saw 57 minutes, I believe, to score 66. So I guess for Para, you're risking his minutes. That's the thing. We don't know if his minutes are going to look like this for the way home because he has been managing that back concern for most of the year. But I guess if you want to get a bit of cash, he's going to be priced in about 390, I believe, off the top of my head. So if you go key onto him, you got a fair bit of money to play with for your final trade or your final few trades there. So I don't mind him. Jack Williams is probably a little bit more expensive, but you're still going to trade key onto him and save a bit of money. Jack Williams is playing about 70 minutes a week there on the edge and middle for Para. So I don't mind that necessarily, but I think Jack Williams takes a hit with, the whole Dill Brown stuff. I don't know what he's doing there, why he's just sitting out, but he was looking a lot better with Dill Brown on that left edge. Dill Brown's not there anymore, so I don't know what's going to happen there with Jackie Williams. So a few options to mull over there, but I think we're going to have to make up some ground, Brian. Missing out on Dylan Edwards. What a dud of a decision that turned out to be from yours truly. I probably spoke too highly about bringing in Brian Toto there on reflection, but it is what it is.
Mate, Panthers outside back. I should have stood more strongly against it. But good, mate. I'm all okay when you and I go in on a play together. We can enjoy the victories or wallow in each other's misery, and we're wallowing in the misery this week, which is fine, mate. I went Paps to Latrell, and then Latrell got ruled out, so I went Latrell to Turbo. And I was like, do I just get Turbo just for the vibes? And do I do it? And now, I can't believe I regret that because I then went Turbo to Dylan Edwards. And I had Dylan Edwards sitting there. And I'm like, nah, Dylan Edwards is too boring. He doesn't give me any vibes. I don't get the vibes. I need vibes. And obviously, my vibes aren't 180-point games. Like, I just, don't enjoy them.
hate them.
Hate
they're
them.
shit.
Hate
Yeah.
them. So, so went Edwards to, to To'o. So that was my one trade. I've got two left. Yeah, I'm the same as you. I'm going to burn both of mine this week. So I've got Dylan Lucas, Keaon there, but I think I really want to get Cleary just to give myself an extra captaincy option week in and week out. So I'm going to trade out whoever is the most expensive out of Lucas and Keaon, really to anyone. A few little point of differences I don't mind because I like Gus Crichton, Hopgood, like if I can make what's his name, Hudson Young work, fantastic. But Scotty Sorensen, he's a nice little cheap option. Lemuelu, also a bit cheaper as well. Obviously got the buy, so you'd wait a week on him. Or Trent Loiero has like a 5-round average of ridiculous amount, and he's just playing big minutes and basing up an absolute storm. He's brought the offload back. He's popping a few offloads as well, so you like to see that from big potato Trent. But I think the other one which I'll lock in is a CT dub to Cleary. So whether it's like an Asako because he's on bye next week. I just had a count through and I've got 18 good players. I then have another 3 shit players next week. So I think I'll just have enough where I could do a luxury trade or a luxury for me of like the Broncos. What was the Broncos left winger's name?
Karapani.
Karapani.
Worth a play next week. Like
Yeah,
they've got a pretty good match.
So I might just do Asako, Asako to Cleary. But we'll see. Maybe I'll do because I'm losing a Dolphin. Maybe I just get Lemuelu the week after, depending on if I've got 18. If I don't like any of the second row options, but I'll see how that goes, mate. Bit of a boring week, but like our final 2 trades in this segment, we're just gonna have to talk in hypotheticals week in and week out. From here on out, because we're burning our final 2, and I had to look back. I have not made a trade after round 22 in the last 8 years of my SuperCoach, so I'm on brand again. I'm doing it by round 21. Fantastic.
Mate, didn't cost you last year at all from memory. Like,
mate, I had a look
where you were. Like, it just didn't change a thing.
But I had a look. In the 8 years, it's only cost me 1 year. Like, there was 1 year where I dropped, and other than that, it pretty much, like, it was either like 200, 300 spots more or 200, 300 spots less than where I was in my, like, when I made my final trade. So, I assume that's probably going to be pretty similar this year. If not, I might drop back a bit with all the injury carnage going on. But as long as I give somehow come back in the run home challenge, maybe try and get like a weekly prize out of the boys over there at Baller, that would be good. All right, guys, that is a wrap for this week. If you like the pod, give us a review or recommend to a friend. James, we got all the way here and we forgot to review the Wallabies versus British and Irish Lions game. How do we?
Mate, that's disappointing. Do you want to talk box kick tactics and set piece resets? That's good. Love that stuff. But my RMs will live in the cupboard for another week, and my puffy jackets and my dad caps are going to live to see another day because they didn't make it down to Caxton Street.
Bugger. I can't wait to catch up with Fitzy in a few weeks.
Can we also say one of our mates in the group chat was like, oh, yeah, well, hopefully the Wallabies put on a good performance so I can bring my mum to the Caxton afterwards. I was like, that is a sentence that you'll never hear a rugby league fan say. Oh, yeah, I'm just going to bring my mum to the Caxton. Like, I love my mum. I would never bring her to the Caxton. God almighty, no. That would be absolute piggery that she does not need to be around. And I was like, do you know what the Caxton is, mate?
But after Wallabies test, mate, they're all sitting around sipping on, espresso martinis and,
and Pinot Gris and Pinot Noir, Pinot Gris.
And if there's a beer, it's a Crownie. I can guarantee you that.
Well, that's for damn sure. But it was just the most bizarre thing I've ever read. I was like, mate, have you ever been to the Caxton? That's exactly not the vibe that place usually entertains for our favourite time of the year. That's for sure, Brian.
And Nick Champion de Crispy or like that. Oh, mate, like anybody who hasn't seen the Wallabies team list, go check it out because I literally thought it was a G up. The most rugby union name I've ever seen. Fantastic. I love it. Yeah, give us a review, recommend to a friend. We do love rugby sometimes, but not really. And up the mighty Redcliffe Dolphins.
Suspected